Welcome. Welcome to this virtual and this physical space. Tradition has named a church, but we recognize that we are a collection of human beings that make one community, a gathering of love and spirit, and through all, we are at different stages of life, but we can still feel the connection that is in our spiritual DNA. We remember those who have come before us. Our ancestors are many, and their collective memories guide and direct us through all of our days. We are conscious that the land that we occupy is borrowed and shared. The universe has granted us a perfect place to grow our food, give us shelter, and give us space for spiritual practice. To that end, we are also conscious that we must protect the land that we borrow, so that the generations to come can grow and thrive in harmony and love with the universe that is. We also recognize that the land is occupied from the first people, the Europeans called Alainawik, but who called themselves Inoka. Others have come to invade and seize, while others to live in harmony and share. Our land is also baptized in the blood, sweat, and a river of tears from enslaved Africans who were forced from their home and the home of their ancestors to become chattel property here in this land. May our spiritual practice recognize these relationships as we strive to live in harmony with our past, our present, and be forever conscious of the future that we create. We are a spiritual people. We are a people of faith. We are a people of love. We are Unitarian Universalists. My name is John Herndon, and our speaker today is Sheila Voss, who currently serves as the Vice President for Communications for the Good Food Institute, an international nonprofit building a sustainable, healthy, and just food system. We begin our worship this morning with a prelude by our accompanist, Joy Heft. The lit chalice suggests the transformations that take place when we are held within religious community. When we light the chalice in worship, we illuminate a world that we feel called upon to serve with love and a sense of justice. Please join in the chalice lighting words on your screen. We hallow this time together by kindling the lamp of our heritage. Our opening words this morning are written by Ella Boyer. As we create and share space together, let us reflect upon what brings us here. We have all come here for different reasons, for different decisions, faced different challenges, and shared different love. And yet all of our differences have led us to this space right here, right now. Some believe we are here for a greater purpose. Others hold fast to a claim of complete coincidence. Others still lie somewhere in between. There are so many differences and barriers between each individual, it would seem at times as though the odds were stacked against us. Becoming one whole, as we believe different things, live and experience different things, and value and hate different things. We are the children of God, the children of the earth, or fully grown adults here, as a piece of the ongoing cycles of the universe, the children of the stars. We all have different definitions and explanations to who or what and why we are. Perhaps all are right. Revelation is not sealed. Despite all that is different, there is one thing that is certainly the same. Somehow we are all right here, right now. We are growing and changing and discovering all here, all together, sharing the sacred space we have shared for years throughout generations. Constantly evolving, constantly changing, let us continue. Let us change and fight together. Let us adapt together. Let us grow together. Let us worship together. Our first hymn this morning is number 21 in our book, For the Beauty of the Earth, and the slides will show the lyrics. Please all sing along if you can.
The skies, for the love which from our birth over and around us lies. Source of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of ear and eye, for the and mind's delight, for the mystic harmony, linking sense to sound and sight. Source of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the wonder of each hour, of the day and of the night, hill and vale and tree and flower, sun and moon and stars of light. Source of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of human care, sister, brother, parent, child, for the kinship we all share, for all gentle thoughts and mild. Source of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise.
Our reading this morning was written by Ariel Aronson Eves. It is entitled, The Soil That Sustains Us. The dictionary defines soil as the upper layer of earth in which plants grow, or a black or dark brown material, typically consisting of a mixture of organic remains, clay, and rock particles. But I like to think of soil as a community. There are three main mineral components of soil: clay, sand, and silt. There's also a little bit of organic matter from decayed plant and animal material. When organic matter is really broken down so it can't decompose anymore, it's called humus, which shares a root with the word human. In addition to minerals and organic matter, also in the soil are billions of microorganisms. Microorganisms are tiny little life forms like bacteria and fungi. These microbes, together with the roots of plants, make up the community of the soil. Just like we humans need to get certain nutrients from our food to be healthy, so do plants. Plants are sunlight powered to make their own food out of air and water, but just like we can't live healthily off of only carbs, there are some nutrients plants need that they can't get through photosynthesis. Luckily, they've developed a system of exchange with the soil microbes. The microbes are able to break down minerals in rocks or capture nutrients from the air. In this and other ways, they get nutrients into forms that the plants can take up. In exchange, the plants feed the microbes sugar. All this is happening under the soil surface. This is what happens in healthy soil. The system of cooperation breaks down when the plants stop needing the microbes. Why would they stop needing the microbes? When we heavily apply chemical fertilizers, the plants get addicted to the quick fix. They are freed from the slow process of relationship building, of having to share. If the plants are annuals, they'll be gone the next year, and the community system will have broken down. The next year's crops will need the chemical fertilizer to do well, because the relationship between plants and soil microbes had suffered. It will take years to restore. But degradation is preventable, and restoration is possible. It just takes a lot of care and learning to see crops not simply as products we take out of the land, but part of the valuable community. And that all starts with soil. Learning to see soil as more than just dirt. You might even think it is sacred. We now enter a time of meditation and contemplation. This reading is from Daniel Chesney Cantner and is entitled God of Many Names and Mystery. God of many names and mystery beyond our naming, persist in guiding us to quiet measure of this moment, that we might link heart to heart in the stillness and calm, leaving behind all scurrying and fury, rush and contempt, for the shore of this quiet moment. We who gather today, coming from many corners of the land, join in breath over breath, so that we might hold the suffering and care for the mourning and celebrate with the joyful. Today we pray over those in our midst who struggle, and appreciate those who have enough spirits to give today. We pray in the names of all those known and unknown, present and absent, remembered and forgotten. We pray in the names of all the helpers of humankind. Amen. Let us calm our breath, and then let it lengthen, emptying ourselves as we prepare to be filled. Whatever last week delivered, whatever next week will hold, let us focus on our breath. Let us focus on right now. Let us come back to ourselves and all that's already been true. As we move to a ritual of joys and concerns, wherever you are and whatever space you occupy, you might be so moved to light a candle or do something that would remind you of that joy or concern that you are expressing in your own life. As you do, you may briefly share it to the people around you or think about it to yourself. We ask you in your space to name and to number your joys and concerns.
Good morning. I am really grateful to be here, and I thank my friend, Peg Flack, for inviting me. I was hoping to be with you all in person, but I am also super grateful for the thoughtful leadership here at First Unitarian for making the best and safest decision to return to remote services. It's hard, I know, what we're all living through with COVID, but one day at a time. So why am I here with you all today? I understand that different people, different voices from the community are invited here to share a few thoughts, reflections, and maybe a few testimonies, a few stories that are living proof of the principles of this church. When Peg shared those principles with me and encouraged me to connect my talk to them, it was honestly very hard to pick just one to zero in on. So I think this morning I'm going to weave in at least four, if that's okay. Most definitely the first and second, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, compassion in human relations, and also most definitely the sixth and seventh, the whole idea of this one world global community and the deep, deep respect for the interdependent web of life, of which we are all a part. Okay, so a real quick bit about me. I'm a lifelong and self-described nature nerd, a career environmental educator, a biodiversity enthusiast, communicator. For 15 years, I actually led the education and wildlife conservation programs of the SeaWorld Busch Gardens and Discovery Cove parks across the country. I had a lot of fun with that. And then from 2009 to 2019, I served as the VP of Education for Missouri Botanical Garden right here in the St. Louis area. Today, I serve as the VP of Communications for a global nonprofit that I am fairly certain you've never heard of, but we will get to that in a bit. So back to the question of the day. Why am I here with you all this morning? Of all the multitude of topics I could possibly dig into and the directions I could take, how will we spend the next 14 or 15 minutes? I promise to keep this south of 20, so I've already yammered on for a couple minutes, so let's get right to it then. Our theme today, food is love. So even though we're not in person, I'm going to be asking you all a few questions from wherever you are in your own home environments. I'm also going to be throwing out some pretty serious stats and data along the way, so I hope you come along with me for this. And to be clear, I am not here to preach anything. While my topic is food, I have absolutely zero intent to tell you what to eat or what not to eat. None of that. I will be sharing some data and facts about food today, namely the practice of using animals as food. But again, I'm not here to preach veganism or vegetarianism at all. Not at all. That's the absolute last thing I want to do. I'm also not here to disparage farmers or growers. That's the last thing I want to do too. I married into a farming family, so for me, food is love is exceptionally personal and quite literal. I am here to explore the theme, food is love, and invite you to do so with me. And I'm going to invite you to do it with me in three distinct ways. On a personal level, on a global, big picture level, and then lastly, the intersection of the two, how our personal perspective on and relationship with food intersects with our global views and values, and how, for me, the reconciliation of the two recently put me on a much more targeted and specific professional path, one that I'm convinced is the absolute best and most impactful path I could be on at this moment in time. Okay. First, let's get personal. Food is one of those great interpretive themes. It's universal, right? 4 out of 4 people eat. So right there, you and I are already connected. But food, while a universal topic, is also an incredibly and exceptionally personal topic. It's also cultural and political and often very touchy. There's so much self-identity and histories wrapped up in what we eat. You are what you eat. There's so much truth in that, right? No doubt, food can simply be a transactional fuel, giving us calories and nutrients we need to survive. But oh my, food can wield so much more power than that. The taste, the smells of certain foods can bring us immediately back to a certain moment in time, a certain person or place. Think about the foods of your childhood, foods that your parents, your grandparents, or other loved ones made for you or taught you how to make. Made for you when you were sick or sad. Made for you to celebrate a birthday or a life milestone. Food as love. Food, of course, is also intensely social. We make and bring food to gatherings to share at holidays and homecomings, after the birth of a baby, again, when someone is sick or recovering, or perhaps in mourning. What do? We bring food with love, right? Think about the last time you made food for someone else, or someone else made you food. In my home, my husband makes most of our meals. He tends our garden. He makes grocery lists, and while he doesn't drink coffee, he knows I do. And he gets me my favorite creamer when he knows I'm running low and I don't even have to say anything about it. Food is love. Food is also social in a community setting as well. Right now, today, think about restaurant workers showing up to work to serve you. Think about checkers at your local grocery store and how we present back to them. If we even make eye contact with them, if we think about their lives and their role in our own access to food, especially during the past year and a half. Food is love. On a personal note, my mom, she just turned 84 last month. She's in Florida, where I was born and raised. I moved to St. Louis in the mid-90s and have lived in Edwardsville since 2002, but I am a native Floridian. And my mom and my siblings are still down there, Central Florida, Winter Park, Florida, in my hometown. And just last year, during COVID, she moved out of my childhood home, her home for the past 54 years, into a senior living apartment, an independent living apartment, less than a mile away. And right now, though, at this very moment, she's in a small rehab room in that same complex. She's struggling a bit with some high blood pressure and poor sleep and anxiety, and they wanted her to recover and rest. So she really can't get out and walk around the complex too much or get out to visit family at the very moment. So for now, that small little rehab room is her world. And her meals, the food they bring her, are pretty much the main events of her day. And it's not that good, apparently. The broccoli's not cooked. The breaded fish is more bread than fish. And my siblings who are down there, and me on the phone, try to ask her if we can sneak her in something, to bring her a little bit of food joy. And just a few days back, I started to ask her about this on a phone call, and I suggested a yummy pasta dish that we could get her. Oh no, that's way too heavy. No, was her response. After that call, my oldest brother, Brian, he got me on the phone, and he told me that my suggestion of the heavy pasta dish stressed her out so much that she told us all to not offer any more ideas, especially about food. It was just adding to her anxiety. But she's my mom, and she should enjoy good food. Food is love, right? And that's what I think I was trying to do there, for me, 1,000 miles away. It's what I was trying to do, at least. So yes, food is incredibly, intensely personal. All of us, I'm so sorry, all of us have our own food is love stories, I'm sure. All of us do. Some happy, some sad. But there is no doubt food is love. Okay, take a deep breath here. All of us take a deep breath. Now, second way to explore food is love, macro. Let's zoom out. Let's shift gears here for a little bit, from personal to global. Let's zoom out and think big on a planet scale. Let's think about those first and second principles, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, compassion in human relations. And most definitely, let's think about the sixth and seventh, the whole idea of a one world global community, and deep, deep respect for how interconnected all of life is. I loved the first reading about soil. We are all connected. Food is most definitely at the heart of how these principles and values play out in the world on a global stage. Rethinking food and food systems, not just as individuals, but as a global community, can solve some of the world's most pressing social and environmental challenges. Think about it: climate, food security, global health, biodiversity. Let's take climate. So clearly, climate change is a global threat that demands global solutions. And today, how food is produced, how it's consumed, how it's wasted is a major contributor to climate change. Our global food production system, including crops and pastures for raising livestock or for consumption, accounts for more than a third of human-caused greenhouse gases. Fun fact, or not so fun fact, it will be scientifically and mathematically impossible for any government to meet their obligations under the Paris Climate Agreement to decarbonize the global economy unless the amount of meat produced via conventional animal agriculture goes down. The world will simply not get to net zero emissions without addressing food systems, and agricultural land use. Let's talk about food security and global health. How on earth will we feed 10 billion people by 2050 without using more land while lowering emissions and do so safely? On the global health front, how food is produced today, specifically using animals for food, is considered a major driver of zoonotic disease and antibiotic resistance. As the world continues to battle what we're battling now, COVID-19 and its variants, data and evidence continue to mount for how best to prevent future pandemics. Another piece of data, a recent UN report named the increased demand for animal protein among the top human-caused drivers of emerging zoonotic diseases. So zoonotic diseases are viruses that jump from animal hosts to humans and are capable of spreading globally. Sound familiar? And then there's antibiotics. The vast majority of antibiotics produced today in the US and around the world are used on livestock. The widespread use of antibiotics is leading to more and more antibiotic-resistant superbugs that already kill more than 500,000 people a year, 500,000 people a year. And the rate of multi-drug resistance is growing worse in developing countries. I'll say that again. The rate of multi-drug resistance is growing worse in developing countries. By 2050, it's estimated that these superbugs could kill upwards of 10 million people a year and cost the global economy $100 trillion. Another threat, biodiversity, lands, waters. Just a quick fact check here. Meat consumption is not going down. It actually keeps going up, despite decades and decades of education and campaigns pushing for the reverse. Everywhere in the world, in the US and everywhere, meat consumption tracks with income. Important to note here, people eat meat despite how it's produced, not because of how it's produced. Education and awareness, promoting plant-based diets, promoting sustainable food choices, they remain important. It's critical. Yes, as individuals, we can influence elected leaders, we can influence governments, nonprofits, companies, investors. But all of that, it's not going to bring meat consumption down. And it's not even going to reach rural China at all. But I digress. Back to biodiversity. Today, agricultural land represents the world's largest and most rapidly expanding ecosystem. Upwards of 50% of the world's vegetated land is used for agriculture. Think about that. If we stay on our current trajectory of how meat is made, and here again, I ask you to consider the meat consumption data that I just cited. By 2050, we will need 593 million hectares more land to grow on. 593 million hectares, to wrap our brains around that, is nearly twice the size of India. 2 Indias worth of more land is what we'll need if we are to stay on the current trajectory of how food is made, and specifically conventional animal ag's requirements for ginormous gobs of land and water resources. So when we zoom out, when we shift from the personal to the global, when we consider these planet-scale challenges exacerbated by our current food system, the impacts on the global poor in developing countries, on the malnourished and marginalized in developed countries, can we say food is love? That's harder, isn't it? So last part, let's bring it home, shall we? The intersection of these two views, the personal and the global. Our food choices and identities, which are, again, intensely personal and deep-rooted, not to the soil, are sometimes out of sync with our global values, from nature and the environment to social justice and global health. It's hard, right? We're in our routines. We want global health and food justice and healthy lands and waters, but don't take away our burgers. And again, I'm right there with you. Again, I'm not preaching today. That's not my intent here. I am just laying down some food for thought. It's hard not having the live audience to laugh at that. Okay. So I'll close by sharing how this reconciliation, or an attempt at reconciliation, is playing out for me. After I put a nice red bow on my 10 years at Missouri Botanical Garden, I gifted myself a sabbatical of sorts at the end of 2019. Who knew that I was timing that with the global pandemic? Don't know if that was poor timing or brilliant timing on my part, but honestly, it is what it is. So over the course of my sabbatical year, I kept my hands in a few things, as Peg knows. I worked alongside her and others with some community sustainability initiatives. And I also did some deep thinking and reflection about my what's next. Still deeply committed to my lifelong love for the natural world, for biodiversity, but I was seeking to spend my energies on solutions that could actually scale globally and fast. It is impossible to be serious about biodiversity conservation and not concern yourself with food and agriculture, which today represents the biggest threat to healthy land and waters, and at the same time, the biggest opportunity for healthy lands and waters. During my pandemic sabbatical, I encountered an amazing organization, rather by accident, the Good Food Institute, a relatively young nonprofit, a science-driven think tank with offices in DC, but with global hubs in Brazil, Europe, Asia Pacific, India, and Israel, whose theory of change had me at hello. It goes something like this. People of all walks of life want our food system to be sustainable, secure, and just. People from all walks of life want a food system decoupled from environmental harm, decoupled from deforestation, decoupled from the pollution of our rivers, creeks, and streams. But studies show that it's not environmental education or health messaging or social justice campaigns that influence what people eat. It's taste and price. It's taste and price. Taste and price decide what people eat. So instead of telling people to eat less meat, which again, educators like myself and global health experts have been advocating for decades to no avail, let's just make meat in a better, more efficient, less resource-intense way. That's what innovation and social progress is all about, right? I mean, if I had my phone here, like who's using a camera with film anymore, right? Technological innovation, it's great. We can make meat with plants and grow it from animal cells with a fraction of the land and water, with zero need for antibiotics. We can reduce the environmental impacts of our food system, decrease the risk of zoonotic disease, and feed more people with fewer resources. We can make a better burger. So yes, they had me at hello. So last November, after a 25-plus year career as an environmental educator, engaging public audiences with call to action campaigns, building partnerships and coalitions with wildlife and biodiversity organizations, all work that I will forever be proud of and grateful for having the chance to do, I joined the Good Food Institute to lead their communications team, where our goal is actually to not engage individuals or tell people what to eat and what not to eat. Not by a long shot. Our mission is focused on systems. It's to advance the science, the policy, and the private sector investment needed for the world to have a better way of making meat. And here's where my food is love story comes full circle. If we can feed more people with fewer resources, we can protect and restore habitats and biodiversity, both aquatic and terrestrial. Because it's reliant on far less land, water, and other inputs, alternative protein agriculture, plant-based meat, cultivated meat, holds global potential for freeing up enough land and water for massive ecological recovery on a planet scale. With the right policies and incentives in place, these same land and water resources can be managed to store carbon, rebuild healthy soils, stem biodiversity loss, and boost resilience to climate change. And with access to new income streams, farmers, ranchers, fishermen, and other stakeholders with intimate understanding of local lands and waters can enjoy livelihoods funded by ecological restoration, carbon sequestration, biodiversity banks, coastal restoration, and rewilding. Imagine it. Can you imagine it? These are the values and the visions that were seeded in my childhood and have defined my life's passions and vocational pursuits, the need for healthy lands and waters, the diversity of life these places support. This is my new Food is Love story. It's how I'm taking my personal relationship with food, my worldview, values, and passions, and trying my darn hardest to have all of it authentically coexist. It's hard, but like most things, it's a journey, and it's worth it. Thank you so much for having me today, and I hope I gave you lots to chew on.
Thank you, Sheila. That was absolutely wonderful, and a message that I think all of us will deeply, deeply appreciate, so thank you very much. For our offering this morning, we offer the gentle reminder that this community of faith is supported only by your giving. We need each other, and in times of trial, we need each other even more. You can mail your gift to the church at Post Office Box 494, Alton, Illinois 62002, or you can give electronically by searching for First Unitarian Church of Alton on the Give Life app, or by using PayPal on our website. Give what you will, for you are a generous people. Now please join with me in our offering prayer. May this offering equip us to inspire love and to seek justice. Our last hymn today will be number 131 in our book and will be projected in slide. The title is Love Will Guide Us, number 131.
Has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like the angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
I'm not aware of any announcements this morning, but please look to your email for any announcements that the church will be sending out, and you will be receiving those in email as they come along. So, please join me in the unison words for extinguishing our chalice this morning. The light of truth and meaning cannot be put out. We are the keepers of this flame until we meet again. Our benediction this morning is entitled Universal Rhythm, and it's by Israel Uffardi. My friends, when you go from here, know that our hearts are always in a holy place, for we are always connected to one another. Know that deep down our hearts beat in one universal rhythm. May we each find the sacred space to hear it. And now for our postlude.